It got very quiet. It got very quiet that first month. You know how people say trust the process? That isolation phase, baby, you gotta trust it, like for real, because when I was in that, the confusion, the loneliness, all that, the despair, the desperation, like I did not know what to do. And of course I wanted to relapse to everything that wasn't good for me, but I chose to prevail and just keep trying to choose the right path. And you know, eventually it worked out. Your isolation phase is a place where you really can sit down and get to know and love yourself the way that you never have and the way that no one else ever has. It's something that's truly so beautiful that you will only know and feel once you sit down and do it. Like, recommitment is everything, and recommitting to something is the best thing that you can do. I feel like it's ego and pride that makes you feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty at all about, you know, stopping or taking a break on something. I think what's important is for you to focus that energy toward recommitting to the things that you were once so passionate about. We're still alive, we still have breath in our bodies, so for you to be able to even continue something is okay. It's actually a blessing to be able to continue something that you once loved. And I feel like the recommitting is so powerful because you're gonna go back into this thing with so much drive and passion because you want to make up for the time that you feel like you lost, and you want to accomplish and see it through to the end because it was something that was a dream. And you know, we're all here to ultimately accomplish these dreams and, you know, just do the best that we can on the way there. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it. Like, I decided to bring back that numbness, that feeling of just feeling nothing into everything I was doing. And instead of thinking about everything so crucially, like, oh, you could have been doing this, or if you would have stayed doing this, then you would have been so much further along. Like, I let all of those like little stupid thoughts go, and I just started doing things without thinking about it. I'm a completely different woman now. And it took all of those months of confusion, silence, and isolation. Hey y'all, I am officially back on YouTube. I have disappeared from YouTube for about 4 months now, and this has a lot to do with my isolation phase that I felt I have been called to. So let's just go ahead and hop into it. From the beginning of this year, I felt that I needed to isolate myself from the world, from new people, from certain environments, all these things. But I wasn't ready to isolate. Like, I didn't want to. I wanted new friends. I wanted to stay outside. I wanted to just, you know, stay in the places that I was familiar with. And I was kind of really just ignoring what God was telling me to do, which was to isolate myself, to focus on myself, and to really lock in. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 4 months. And I'm here to share with you guys my journey. So it's currently 11/17, Sunday, September 29th, which is also my little brother's 21st birthday. I realized it was time for me to isolate myself and make this significant change, or at least start the change, when I was in environments that I'm used to being in all the time, but I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I felt out of place and I felt confused. I wasn't enjoying myself as much in these spaces. Also with people who I've been around for years, people that even just had the same type of energy as me, just didn't seem to click anymore. Like, I couldn't connect with them anymore. For example, I moved out of my hometown, which is Nashville, Tennessee, and I found myself going back to Nashville. And when I did, I was, of course, rekindling with the old friends that I used to spend time with or grew up with. And we would, you know, link up, go out and have our good time and just try to catch up and bond, and, you know, and it felt like I was talking to a complete stranger. Now, I say that's so weird to me because there are friends that I have that I don't talk to for a long time, and then, you know, you come back and y'all talk and it's just like everything, you're just picking up where you left off. Those people are people that are meant to stay with you. Those are probably people that are part of your soul family. We have very few of them in this life. So I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the same type of friend who I've been with for years, and you come back and you rekindle and it seem like you're talking to a stranger because you guys are on two completely different levels. Wherever that how do I say this? I feel like these friends that I was not able to connect with anymore are still on the same energy and frequency that we were both on the last time I seen them. Because I've elevated to a new version of myself, I was not able to connect with the people from my past if they weren't also elevated. And that was like 90% of the people that I was around. And so with me noticing that I'm not comfortable or familiar with the people or places or things and habits that I once was accustomed to, I realized that it was time for a timeline jump, where I maybe already had jumped timelines and I just had to get accustomed to the things that feel right. And at the time, I didn't know what felt right. I was very confused. And so that's where the isolation phase begins. In your isolation phase, you will gain clarity and you will gain all of the answers to your confusion. It just takes time. And for me, it took about 4 months for me to make a really significant change within myself, my life, and just everything that has to do with me. This video might be a little lengthy because, for one, I have not been on camera for a while and I have so much to share, and I also love to take my time when I'm speaking and expressing myself. So bear with me if you stay till the end of the video. I love you and I hope that you can pick up something from this and maybe be inspired to take your isolation phase seriously, or even just make small steps to eliminate things, people, places in your life that don't serve you anymore. Anyway, summing it all up, yeah, I just knew that the things that I was familiar with had to go. And even with knowing that, the hardest thing is actually doing it, because I was fighting it. I still wanted to talk to these people. I felt a little bit guilty if I stopped talking to them because of course, you know, like people be like, oh, you fake, and oh, you acting all brand new in Hollywood. And that wasn't really the main concern on my mind. I didn't want to be lonely. Like, I didn't really care about what they would say because of my distance or like my change. I don't really care about that part. I really just didn't want to be lonely. So it was really just like a me thing. And so the first step was me letting go of those people, and it wasn't completely like I wasn't doing it cutthroat. I just stopped calling. You know, I realized that with me not calling, nobody was calling me. So I mean, it kind of just worked out that way, and it made me see a lot. Like when I stopped calling people, they weren't calling me. And you know, I feel like I was always labeled as the strong friend, or the friend where people feel like I have it all together, because even though I have been through a lot of turmoil in my life and a lot of just things, it may not seem that way to people in my life or people on the outside, because I do carry myself well and I present myself with the highest energy possible, even when I am in the worst situations possible. I choose to show up that way because I choose to always try my best to show up as my highest self for myself. That's how I maneuver and get through my life. So that will come across as me being strong and, you know, I can get through anything and this and that, but really be crying myself to sleep, and nobody would ever know unless they ask, and nobody would ask. So I said all that to say, I was always the friend checking up on everyone, or even if it was just a regular conversation about our goals and lives and things like that, I was always the friend rooting them on, telling them how beautiful they were when they were insecure, or just randomly giving out good energy. And I realized the friends that I had were not reciprocal when it came to just giving. I realized the people that I had in my life were like takers, or I'll say receivers, because they weren't just being like that intentionally. That's just their energy. But I realized that I was giving out way more energy than I was receiving from people in my life. And I decided that, you know what, it's time to pour back and give all of that energy to myself and see how that will turn out for me. All of this started out mentally. Like, I was figuring it out for a while, and then over time, like now, I'm actually like doing it, like putting all these thoughts into action. So I stopped calling people. I started becoming very observant when it came to the people that were in my life. I started paying attention to how I felt, how my body reacted when I was around environments or people or things. Like, I really took note to how I would feel with things, and if something didn't feel right, I just immediately let it go. And so with me being disciplined with that and setting all these new boundaries to protect myself and my energy, it got very quiet. It got very quiet that first month. And I think that month was the same month that my cat Kaza was diagnosed with a terminal illness called FIP. Now, I shared this a little bit on my Instagram, like just on my social media. I even made a YouTube video about it. So my cat got sick, and it was an illness that could have killed him in like a week if I did not start him on treatment like within a week. I made a GoFundMe for, I'm gonna wrap this up like really quick. I don't even want to talk about this that much. The people that were helping me were strangers. The people that I used to call friends, or the people that I would pour into, like, they wouldn't even come through for me when it was a dire situation in my life where I really needed them. So that was also another wake-up call. And so imagine being like extremely lonely and actually like cutting everybody off because of your own benefit, and then like something like this happens. Like, y'all don't even know. Like, I'm not gonna go into detail, but it was a very like scary couple of months. By the way, he's healed now. Kaza is healthy and healed. He's so big, y'all. Look. He's so big. Anyway, so all of the feelings of loneliness and slight desperation started to set in for me. And I was so lonely, and I just felt so alone, especially dealing with the tragedy that hit with my baby. I wanted new friends. I wanted somebody to distract me. I wanted something familiar to grasp onto, because I was just so empty. I felt so empty. And so I would seek out new friends. I was trying to make friends. I was being social. I was looking for, like, I was of course single. And I was like, ooh, I want like a little friend. Like, like I just wanted some company, like maybe like a male's attention, or like just a good girlfriend. Like, I wanted something. Like, I wanted something familiar. And so I started being social, like I said, and I would meet friends, or I would meet a guy. And if it didn't end bad immediately, or if it didn't end bad right off the bat, it wouldn't stick around for long. Like, I would make these friendships or have these new connections, and they would not last. They would not be of substance. And it was just because I was not in a space to even connect with someone. I was not my best self, and I was in a bad space, like mentally, all these things. So whatever energy that you are at the moment is the type of energy that you're going to attract. These people, I feel, were simply put in my life to show me things about myself, because every person that came and left, I definitely got a hint of myself in them, if that makes sense. I was able to recognize, like, okay, this person is this way, I see that in myself. I see why we, you know, aligned, and I see what I need to work on. People that you meet in your isolation phase are not going to be people that are going to stick. They're people that are supposed to kind of teach you something, and they're not going to stick anyway because God wants you to be isolated and there's nothing that you could do about it. I was fighting it for so long. I got so fed up because I was meeting a lot of people and it just seemed like it was going to be that comfort, but ultimately, if you're supposed to be isolating and you find someone that feels good and familiar and fun, it's going to distract you from the purpose at hand, and so it has to end. And so I got fed up and emotionally drained from all of these different encounters with these people, and then of course on top of the feelings that I was already feeling, you're meeting all these new people and their disappointment, so it was just making me feel even worse. And so I feel like it was needed for me to get tired of people, because I got to a point where I was annoyed and fed up with meeting and talking to all these people that I just started to hate people. Not hate people, but you know, I just hated the idea of being social. So I became an introvert, like probably like month 2. Mind you, this was like a 4-month process. So like month 2, I started becoming an introvert, and that's never been my identity. I've always been very extroverted, very friendly, very talkative. I got real quiet. Like, y'all know how I said it got real quiet around me that first month? I ended up getting real quiet. And so I was not talking to nobody. I did not want to talk to anybody. I was going through it at home, trying to heal my cat. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on in my mind. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't want nobody around me, and so that was just that. So I started accepting it. If I'm being honest, June was honestly a blur. And the reason why I say this is because I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't really connected as much as I would like to be with God and just myself and the universe. I was just silent. And I was really silent the whole June because I was kind of numb. And instead of thinking so much and trying to analyze and internalize everything and try to figure out what's going on, I just let it all go. And yeah, June, I really surrendered. Like, not gave up, but I just decided to surrender everything. Like, I was done trying to figure out what was going on. I was done trying to, you know what I mean? So June, like that whole month, I just practiced just letting go, like, and just being. That's when I started sitting in silence for the first time in a long time. A couple years ago, like a year or so ago, when I first dived into spirituality and just the knowing of self and my awareness and divinity and all of those things, I would, like, when I first started that and first tapped into that, I was, of course, doing my meditations. I was being silent and I was in nature a lot. I was, of course, connecting with God a lot. But at the end of June, I decided to get back to that. And it was kind of just natural. After like a month of silence, I was like, okay, it's time to start reconnecting. It's time to figure out what I want. A lot of the times when I was in silence, I didn't know why I was in silence, and it wasn't like a depressing type of thing. It's not like I was just in my room with the dark and being like, I wasn't sad. I really didn't feel anything. I just was just sitting. And a lot of the times when you're just sitting and you are surrendering, whether you can consciously realize it or not, you are receiving downloads and you are like tapped in a way, because you're silent and your mind is clear. It's like a form of meditation almost, but like intentionally but not intentionally, if that makes sense. If you do this, let me know. Like sometimes instead of like meditating and, you know, practicing on your breathing and like all those things, sometimes meditation can just be you just sitting in silence and clearing your mind. That's really just like kind of what it is. You can meditate in many different ways, but anyway, yeah, clarity started to pour in, and I started mapping out how I wanted my life to go from this point forward. I already was comfortable at this point with the fact that I didn't have anybody from my past. I was, you know, disconnecting. I was disconnected from social media. I was disconnected from everything. And it became my new normal to just be this way. It became my new normal to be silent, to be observative. And so I was carrying that into this new life that I was creating. In July, I got a new apartment. I moved out of the space I was in where I acquired all of these terrible emotions and experiences. That apartment has so many like things about it, and so me moving into this new space, it really made me feel like I had a breath of fresh air. It made me feel like I wasn't suffocating anymore, because anyway, leaving all that in the past with the old apartment, I'm in a new space now, and so I'm able to create new experiences. And so, mind you, I moved into this new apartment while I was still in that like silent phase for a month. Still very numb, still very observant, still very introverted, still very like don't want to talk to nobody, whatever. I had a lot of time to sit back and think about what I wanted. And so when I moved into this new apartment, I decided to try to put all those things into action. I started reading again, which is something that I used to love to do growing up. My mother always told me she always sees me like reading like when I was a child, and I remember that. I remember the joy I had in reading, so I started to tap back into that. I started back journaling again. I started back doing the things that made me feel whole, like, you know, just starting to connect with myself again. I started talking to God more, connecting again with my ancestors and the universe, going outside more. I started doing things that made me feel alive naturally. Like I started paying attention to the simple joys again. Like it was kind of like a rebirth. Like, okay, you know how like in the dead of winter it's like just dead, and then the spring comes and it's so lively. Like the winter is so silent and dead, and then in the spring it's just like blossom. I feel like that happened to me in like 2 months. Like June was like the dead of winter for me and my soul or something, and then July was like spring. Like I feel like I had a birthday in July or something. Like I one day just woke up and I was a new person. Like I swear that's how it felt. And it didn't immediately happen the first day I moved into this apartment. It kind of took me like 2 weeks, but that's how it felt. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just felt like one day it all just clicked for me. And I don't know if it was all the silence and like meditation, but it just kind of clicked, and this ripple effect happened every single day. Like every single day I just seen myself tapping deeper into joy, into pleasure in everyday life, you know. And every day wasn't perfect, but you know, we're working toward that still. Anyway, yeah, July came and I just kind of blossomed, and I just started like taking my time with myself, getting back to these routines. Still being isolated. I started talking to people, but it was so hard for me to like let anybody in. So that was still a thing. I was still very like, and I still kind of am. When I was isolated, I also let go of a lot of my dreams. I let go of a lot of my passions. I stopped painting. I stopped doing YouTube. I stopped working on other things that I don't talk about that really mean a lot to me. And so in July, I decided to pick those things back up and slowly work toward them. And me working toward all these things that I put on pause, it took, how do I say this? Letting go of so many things that you were passionate about and then starting them up again, it was kind of hard for me because I felt terrible about letting them all go and all the time that was lost with me not doing it. So I did kind of feel guilty when I was restarting things, which is another reason why it took me so long to return back to YouTube, because you know, you make so much progress with something and then you just let it go and you just feel guilty. Like, you know, we all do this. So I did feel very guilty when I returned to things that I once was doing so well at and then just gave up because of me letting my life circumstances take over. But I realized that that was actually needed, because recommitment is everything, and recommitting to something is the best thing that you can do. I feel like it's ego and pride that makes you feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty at all about, you know, stopping or taking a break on something. I think what's important is for you to focus that energy toward recommitting to the things that you were once so passionate about. We're still alive, we still have breath in our bodies, so for you to be able to even continue something is okay? It's actually a blessing to be able to continue something that you once loved. And I feel like the recommitting is so powerful because you're gonna go back into this thing with so much drive and passion because you want to make up for the time that you feel like you lost, and you want to accomplish and see it through to the end because it was something that was a dream. And you know, we're all here to ultimately accomplish these dreams and, you know, just do the best that we can on the way there. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it. Like, I decided to bring back that numbness, that feeling of just feeling nothing into everything I was doing. And instead of thinking about everything so crucially, like, oh, you could have been doing this, or if you would have stayed doing this, then you would have been so much further along. Like, I let all of those like little stupid thoughts go, and I just started doing things without thinking about it, and just allowed myself to feel the joy of doing the things again instead of the resentment to myself of stopping, you know? And I'm really proud of myself. So yeah, July was great. I had my rebirth. What was it, July? May, June, July. Yeah, like July. August, things started going real good. Like, things started going really good for me because my mental was so different. Like, I told you, I was reconnecting with myself again and everything else that I love. And because I've been so quiet, I never really got to hear myself speak. And so when I started talking to people, I realized that the way I speak and the way that I think and my beliefs compared from now to a couple months ago is completely different. I'm a completely different woman now. And it took all of those months of confusion, silence, and isolation. So everything eventually does make sense. And that's something that sounds so cliche because everybody's like, oh, you know, trust the process, this and that. But like, I really did trust the process. And I've done that a couple times. It's so much that I be wanting to tell y'all. If y'all see me like fidgeting and stuff, it's because I be wanting to overshare. I can't do that right now. You know how people say trust the process? That isolation phase, baby, you gotta trust it, like, for real. Because when I was in the confusion, the loneliness, all that, the despair, the desperation, like, I did not know what to do. And of course I wanted to relapse to everything that wasn't good for me, but I chose to prevail and just keep trying to choose the right path. And you know, eventually it worked out. So, you know, trust that isolation phase. It could be 2 months for you, it could be 4 months like me, it could be a year. Like, I'm still isolated, very much so, but I'm deciding to share myself again with people in the world, but in a way that's better for me, in a way that still makes me feel safe, and with more boundaries. So I still very much am in my isolation phase, but just, you know, in a different way. Anyway, whatever. But let me add this. When I was away, I got to analyze the agreements that I had with myself, the beliefs that I had over myself. I was really studying myself, like I said earlier in the video. And I spent every single day committing to doing better than the day before. Simple as that. Some days were not good. Some days were not as productive as I would like them to be. But I had to remind myself that the path to growth it's not going to be linear as we would like it to be. There were days in a row where I just felt like I was just terrible and I'm not making any progress. But I would look back at myself from May and I would see I'm in a completely different space. And so just comparing yourself to yourself, it's really all you need sometimes to get some motivation. It helped me to keep going, especially just seeing like how my mental was and how I'm actively working on it, even when I'm feeling tired, even when I don't want to. Like, I just kept going. It's just me doing that every day when I didn't want to. It just really showed the resilience and strength that I have. And instead of being like, oh, I'm tired of being one of God's strongest soldiers, like, ugh, I accepted it. Like, I'm happy to be strong. I'm happy to be of this energy in a world that was made to break you. I'm happy to be strong, and I'm happy that I was able to comfort myself and be there for myself and love myself in all of these moments of my isolation. I feel like your isolation phase is a place where you really can sit down and get to know and love yourself the way that you never have and the way that no one else ever has. It's something that's truly so beautiful that you will only know and feel once you sit down and do it. Like, all in all, I am just so grateful that I chose to honor and accept this isolation phase instead of hiding from it and try to skip around it. This was so needed. Like, I don't know. All I can say is I'm grateful. You would truly be holding yourself back from so much by trying to skip over this growth that comes from isolation, this self-awareness that you can gain, and just, you know, you can really catapult yourself into your highest timeline by taking your time with yourself to sit back, study yourself, and focus and really lock in on you. And so this will probably not be the only isolation phase that I have, but this was the first one that I actually took serious in my 24 years of living. And so I'm grateful. And if you've seen me previously on my channel, then you kind of know a gist of how I used to be. But if you're new here, then, you know, you get to meet this new me. And I'm excited to share myself with you guys. I'm excited to share this new version of myself that's been birthed, and I'm excited to connect in a new way. I'm excited to just be in this energy and this light that I've discovered. And hopefully I can inspire you guys to do the same for yourself, to grow, to disconnect and let go of everything that doesn't serve you so you can get to the other side of everything that's for you. Thank you for watching. If you made it to this part of the video, wow, thank you for listening to me. I have a lot to say sometimes, and it's probably going to be that way for a while because I've been silent for so long. I'm going to be a chatterbox, but you made it this far. Thank you. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.